So savouring, you may be familiar with it. You may not know it as savouring, but you may be familiar with the idea of savouring. So this is another technique for harnessing the power of unforgettable experiences. I've got several experiences that I can recall where I've actively tried to savour the moment. Savouring itself involves noticing positives and using cognitive and behavioural strategies to enhance and expand the positive experience. So I deliberately tried to savour the last morning when I was in Bali. I recall sitting at breakfast and I deliberately savor in the moment. I wrote this excerpt that I've shared with you here in my journal. I took a video of the restaurant, just me sitting in the restaurant. Every morning I enjoyed a really leisurely breakfast. I enjoyed people coming and going and sitting with me. And I have a video that's literally just me sat at the table, nothing going on, just scanning the room, just so that I can remember that the sounds, obviously not the smells, but the sounds and the images. And I wrote this in my journal, and this was a reminder to me. I've even got the date, the 16th of February, to add anchors to savouring to help amplify and easily remind yourself. I'm sitting here at 9:36 on the final morning in Bali and want to remember the feeling of empowerment and connection I've had in Bali. Watch the video, do the anchor, and remember being in this moment at breakfast this day. And when I was preparing for this presentation, I looked back at my notes from Bali and I looked back at my photos, and I even went back and looked back at my photos from 2020, and all of those positive feelings came back up for me and some less positive. And it was really interesting for me to see how perhaps I hadn't savoured at the time. To Adrian and to Motivate Community for giving me this opportunity. I'm going to talk about positive experiences and unforgettable experiences. So what people might know about me from the posters and from people who know me is I'm a teacher in the UK. And I love to travel. I've got traveled to Bali to work towards the master practitioner in NLP. What people might not know about me, however, is how some of my experiences have helped shape me and helped give me confidence and help me to move forward in my life. I'm going to use some NLP techniques and the power of savouring, which is a positive psychology technique, to teach you how to harness the power and the positive emotions of those unforgettable experiences. My first question then, have you ever had an experience so profound that it has changed you in some way? This could be an intensely positive experience, which is what we're going to focus primarily on today, or it could be a negative experience. Both of these can be really powerful in their own ways, unforgettable. I'm going to share one such of my experiences with you. A few years ago, I was really disappointed. I was due to join the Bali NLP training in July 2020. And I believe it was in May of that year, because of the ban on international travel, the training was postponed to February 2021. Due to the pandemic, however, it was then switched to be online, and many of us spent hours and hours and hours on Zoom in July, August, September, October of 2020, working, learning, connecting with others. Fast forward almost 4 years, and I was in Bali. This is us online. I found some screenshots.
What is true?
I found myself in Bali sipping lychee martinis by the pool with many like-minded people in tropical paradise, quite frankly, living my best life. What I'm going to do during the next hour or so is I'll encourage you to reflect on your own unforgettable experiences and harness their power to boost your positive emotions. I first met Adrian in Shanghai in October time in 2019. I was living in Shanghai working as a teacher, and I attended a coaching boot camp. At the time, he was advertising the NLP retreat in Bali for the Chinese New Year. I had all plans for Chinese New Year, and really was really drawn to both the NLP, the coaching, and the fact that it was in Bali. So I opted to join the next retreat in July 2020. To be honest, it was mostly because it was in Bali. I was familiar with NLP. My dad's done a lot of work with NLP in the past, from a distance, really. And I'd already got some coaching experience through my master's. But the chance to gain an ICF accredited qualification, the International Coaching Federation, and to enable me to become an accredited coach was one of the main selling points for me. And well, of course, Bali. Fast forward 6 months, the whole world had shut down due to the pandemic, and international travel was practically impossible. The hours we spent on Zoom in the summer of 2020, I was at my kitchen table. Others were in Australia, China, India, the US. We really were an international bunch. I am really grateful for the time that Adrian, Chris spent training us, and the time the others took to practice with me outside of those sessions, and the techniques we learned online. Over the following years, I kept in touch with some of the people, some more closely than others. And whilst I did continue to coach, over time, the connections I'd made in 2020, they watched. When I saw that the Bali NLP retreat was running during Chinese New Year in 2024 and the dates coincided with my school holiday, I had to find a way to join. I did hesitate because of the cost and the fact that I'd done hours of online training in NLP. But my desire for connection and, quite frankly, the FOMO, the fear of missing out, meant that I signed up. So February this year, I travelled to Bali to join Motivate Community's Bali NLP retreat. For me, this week was incredible. It was unforgettable because of what I learned about myself. I got the chance to practice the skills I learned online. And during this week, I remembered who I am. And I realised that what I have to offer isn't diminished by whether I can recognise it as valuable. In a moment, pictures of Bali for you here as well. I did tell Adrian I wasn't going to talk about the PERMA model. So my background is also in positive psychology. And one of the pillars of positive psychology is positive emotions. So what we're looking at today is trying to harness the power of those positive emotions and anchoring those so that we can bring them forward more readily. So we're trying to use a little bit of NLP with positive psychology, and just a few quotes from Professor Barbara Fredrickson, who's written this book on positive psychology called Positivity, which these can help us broaden our minds, build our resources. And positivity is a choice we need to make again and again. In our breakout room, and I hope Candy won't mind me sharing, we talked about the contrast with perhaps something more frustrating that happens and then realizing or having a greater appreciation for the positive things that happen. Because we have that contrast of something slightly more frustrating or slightly more negative in there as well. So what we're going to do, and you may feel free to have your cameras on or off for the next couple of minutes or so, we're going to look at anchoring, which is a powerful technique in NLP and Neuro-Linguistic Programming that allows you to create a link between a stimulus, and I'll share a few stimuli in a moment, and a desired emotional state. So by applying an anchor, you can trigger a positive emotion in yourself whenever you need it. So the best time to anchor a state is when it's happening naturally. So that's why I asked you to talk about your positive experience or something that you can think back to before we started this process. The next best option is to relive a vivid associated memory of a state from the past. So mine, when we sat in Bali, well, I think it was the first day, and Adrian asked us to get into an engaged learning state. And the engaged, I thought back to a time back in 2019, and my anchor was me clicking my fingers. And even now, when I click my fingers and think of that, the engaged learning state comes to me more quickly. I think back to one of the actions and words that Janine had when she shared Jayo with us. And those of you who are there will maybe smile as you think of that. I regularly listen to one of the songs. I thought about sharing it, but then I thought it would take too long to set it up. One of the songs I listen to regularly when I feel I need to tap into that, the Bali Emily. I look back at the pictures that we shared. I have videos that I took when I was in Bali, which I may share with you later. So what I would like you to do right now is think of a time when you felt successful, loved, purposeful, engaged, whichever positive emotion you've chosen. Think back to that moment. What's it like for you when you feel happy, excited, purposeful, successful, engaged? Think of the time when you were in that state. What was happening at that time? What could you see? What could you hear? How did you feel? What was happening around you? Be really specific on the details. As you go back to that time now, go right into it. Float down into your body, put yourself in that first position. What are you seeing? What can you hear? And I want you to turn up those feelings, those sounds, those images. Turn them up. Go even higher. And in that moment, think about, what is it about this moment that I'm going to take with me? I'd like you to pick an anchor. I mentioned mine was clicking my fingers, and it's specifically clicking my right hand. It could be you touch a part of your body. It could be an image. It could be a sound. It could be something really inconspicuous. It's important that you fire this state when you're feeling engaged, successful, loved, positive. Some suggested anchors for you. It could be a visual anchor. So a picture, a religious symbol, a facial expression, a smile. It could be a gesture. It could be something that you hear. Words, names, accents, maybe. Music. Could be a particular item of clothing. A certain exercise. Could be the taste of something. If you have a cup of tea with you now, or a glass of wine, maybe. It could be the smell of something. I wouldn't suggest you pick something that has associations with other things like sticking up your middle finger, or, I don't know, making a rude gesture. And I want you to do that anchor. Whatever it is, bring that to mind. If it's an action, do the action. If you're muted, if it's a word, say the word out loud. If it's an image, bring that image to the front of your mind. And really put yourself into that moment where you're feeling energized, positive, joyful, loved, successful, purposeful. I'm just going to sit in that moment for another 5 seconds or so. Okay, now I want you to open your eyes, stand up, and just shake it off. Shake it off completely. Come back to the room, shake it off, bring yourself back to the present moment. You're sat in front of your computer screen, your phone screen. It is the 14th of April. For me, it's 10:28. It could be whatever time for you. Okay? Take a moment, look away from the screen. Okay. And now I want you to go back into that energized, whichever word it was that you chose, and fire your anchor, your gesture, your word, your image, your sound, your taste, whatever it was for you. I want you to fire that anchor. How do you feel? And the more you practice, the more you associate that feeling and those experiences, those unforgettable times with that anchor, the stronger that will become. So for me, as I said, this was it. And even Janine's anchor from Bali, that still makes me smile when I think of it. And that for me is somebody else's anchor that I've okay, what I'd like to do could go back into either the same or different breakout rooms. It doesn't matter, same if it's easier. And I just want you to take a couple of moments to how did that anchor work for you in that moment? It's a very short exercise, probably needs a little bit more practice. But how do you feel having done that exercise for the last 4 or 5 minutes? So we could go back into the breakout rooms just for 2 or 3 minutes, please. Just going to share because I think some of you maybe had your eyes closed when I shared the, bear with me one moment, share screen. When I shared the suggested anchors. So the examples of common anchors are on the screen now if you wanted to take a picture of that. Whatever works for you. I've got several anchors for Bali. This one gets me back in that engaged state. The image of lychee martinis. And just the talking about the lychee martinis always brings a smile to my face. The Jayo and the Adrian's mispronunciation of Jayo always makes me smile and take me back to that time. I was in Salzburg last week and I saw the Agiros restaurant, and that I had to take a picture and I shared it with the group, and that also made me smile.
Hey,
so anchoring
Emily,
is one. Yeah,
can I share an anchor?
please do.
Not a very pleasant anchor, but when my kids ask for things and I have to say no, or I choose to say no, the kids go, "Oh." My kids make these kind of sounds, and a lot of the times these sounds are anchored. So the kids go, "Oh," and I often have this kind of reaction where I feel, oh, maybe I've let the kids down, or maybe I haven't been a good parent or something. No, it activates a state in me where I'm feeling kind of hurt by it. And we have so many different anchors in relationships, looks and, looking at each other certain ways. I love this topic. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And anchors, yeah, they can be deliberate anchors. They can be things like Adrian's just shared. Today, particularly, we are focusing on positive, unforgettable experiences, but there are also unforgettable experiences that could be negative, that could have a negative impact on us. I can think of one myself that there's an anchor that I have that causes quite an unpleasant feeling in me. And if that is the case, then I would suggest that you reach out to Adrian, myself, Darko, anyone that's done some NLP training and have a look at collapsing anchors. But today, as I say, we're focusing on the positives. So NLP is really powerful in looking at building positive actions within ourselves. What I'm going to switch to now, and in a moment, I'm going to ask you to find a piece of paper, is I'm going to switch to savoring. So savoring, you may be familiar with it. You may not know it as savoring, but you may be familiar with the idea of savoring. So this is another technique for harnessing the power of unforgettable experiences. I've got several experiences that I can recall where I've actively tried to savor the moment. Savoring itself involves noticing positives and using cognitive and behavioral strategies to enhance and expand the positive experience. Bryant and Veroff in 2007 proposed that savoring has three main components. You can savor through anticipation, so a broad future-oriented approach that brings about positive emotions as we contemplate what is to come. So you maybe had that experience, certainly maybe if you have children waiting for Christmas and they're so excited for Christmas, or for me, it's waiting to get on an aeroplane again and being excited for that. Savoring through reminiscing, and that's what we're primarily going to focus on today. A past-oriented approach where we look back on our past and appreciate positive emotions evoked by memories. Savoring the moment, a present-oriented approach that identifies what is good right now and extends and expands the time focused on it to enhance positive emotions. Again, from Bryant in 2003. So I deliberately tried to savor the last morning when I was in Bali. I recall sitting at breakfast and I deliberately savoring the moment. I wrote this excerpt that I've shared with you here in my journal. I took a video of the restaurant, just me sitting in the restaurant. Every morning I enjoyed a really leisurely breakfast. I enjoy people coming and going and sitting with me. And I have a video that's literally just me sat at the table, nothing going on, just scanning the room, just so that I can remember that the sounds, obviously not the smells, but the sounds and the images. And I wrote this in my journal, and this was a reminder to me. I've even got the date, the 16th of February, to add anchors to savoring to help amplify and easily remind yourself. I'm sitting here at 9:36 on the final morning in Bali and want to remember the feeling of empowerment and connection I've had in Bali. Watch the video, do the anchor, and remember being in this moment at breakfast this day. And when I was preparing for this presentation, I looked back at my notes from Bali and I looked back at my photos, and I even went back and looked back at my photos from 2020. And all of those positive feelings came back up for me, and some less positive. And it was really interesting for me to see how perhaps I hadn't savoured at the time. So savouring is different from pleasure and happiness. It's about attentional focus and appreciation to positive feelings and moments, whereas a sensation of pleasure can still occur even when we're not mindful of, consciously attending to, or savouring pleasure. We need to actively engage in savouring on these. All these positive moments can just slip away unnoticed and not be remembered. As I've mentioned, there are different types of savouring. It's positively associated with present happiness, percentage of happiness in a day, high levels of self-esteem, optimism. Positive events alone aren't enough to bring about happiness. People need to be able to attend and appreciate the positive feelings that emerge from positive events. What I'd like us to do now is a visualization. So you may wish to write these prompts down on a piece of paper. I'm going to leave them on the screen for you. This is going to take about 10 minutes. So if you have any questions, feel free to, before we start, feel free to type them in the chat or unmute yourself. But we're going to do a visualization on savouring, and we're particularly going to look back at a positive past experience. It could be the same one that you used for your anchor. It could be a different one. But we're particularly going to look at savouring the positive emotions of this event. So the practice of savouring has been linked to many benefits, including lower rates of depression and anxiety and higher rates of optimism, joy, happiness, and well-being. At its core, savouring refers to the ability to draw out and maximise positive emotions in our lives. However, many of us find it difficult to hold on to good experiences after they're gone. Indeed, many wonderful experiences from the past, weddings, holidays, jobs, promotions, etc., do not always enter our minds on a regular basis once they've passed. This practice invites you to use the power of visualization to get fully in touch with a past experience of great joy. I'd like you to take a moment to reflect on some of your favourite memories. Perhaps it was the birth of a child, an unforgettable, incredible travel experience you've had, your wedding day, or some other wonderful time in your life. I'd like you to choose one of these moments. Don't take too long thinking about it and briefly write it down. What happened? Where were you? Perhaps the date. Who was there? What did you see, hear, feel, taste, smell? Just going to give you a couple of minutes to write that down, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. So the first question I'd like you to ask yourself, and you can make a note on this or you can just reflect on this in your mind. What feelings or emotions do I remember most from this experience? Ideally positive emotions, but whatever emotions came up at the time, come up for you now. And really specifically, what were the sights, smells, tastes, sounds, textures associated with this memory, with this really positive, joyful memory, this unforgettable experience? And to use some NLP here as well, maybe you could turn up those sights, make them brighter, make the smells more intense, the tastes, the sounds, turn them up. Really feel the textures around you, maybe what the clothing you were wearing, what was under your feet, what could you feel with your hands. And what other small details about this experience made it so special for you? Really go into detail. Imagine that you're retelling the story in as much detail as you can. Next, once you've had chance to get more in touch with this unforgettable experience, this special memory, gently take 3 slow, deep breaths and close your eyes. And we'll do that together. And close your eyes. And for the next few minutes, allow yourself to visualize this positive memory more fully, basking in whatever feelings come from it. If your mind wanders elsewhere, just make note of that and redirect your awareness back to your memory. In your mind's eye, paint in the small mental details, allowing yourself to become even more immersed in this pleasant memory. I'm just going to sit in that moment for 2 minutes. And if you gently bring yourself back in the room and open your eyes, and return to the present moment. And before we come back together, I'd like you to write down or reflect on any brief reactions or observations you've had about this savouring experience. I'm just going to give you another minute or two to make any notes or reflections for yourself. And we have time to share in the main room, or we can do this in breakout rooms. I think maybe we'll share in the main room for now. So anyone would like to share how they feel after the visualization of this moment?
I remembered things that I'd forgotten about it. So it made it fresh again. And I like that the feeling of achieving something, of reliving something, that was beautiful.
Thank you for sharing, Lisa.
No worries.
Would anyone else like to share?
Yes, it was a great experience for me. So some pictures happens in my mind, then from the activities which I'm doing, and I'm feeling great. So I decided to put much more effort in doing these activities, do it more frequently. Thank you for this exercise.
Thank you, Darko. Anyone else like to share? So visualizing, and I'm sure some of us have done visualization exercises before, either deliberately or not. Visualizing past experiences that were meaningful and joyful for us is one of the most effective ways to practice the powerful skill of savoring. By calling to mind some of these experiences, we can draw them out more fully, as Lisa mentioned, the details that she'd forgotten, and more fully re-experience the emotions we felt, which can create a greater sense of both pleasure and meaning. Bernadette, I see you've raised your hand.
Yeah, what I'd like to add is, how many of us have a savings bank account for the rainy days, or we'd like to have a saving bank account for the rainy days? What about our emotional bank account?
I love that.
And I can tell you, I'm a finance person for half a century. I'm much older than what I appear. And I can tell you, if I had done that from an early age, I would have saved so much money in therapy and even training to some extent. Then I can go more to Bali and have, what was that? Lychee martini. I mean it, yeah, just think of it in terms of emotional bank account. And it's the same thing with in our relationships, whatever meaningful relationship it can be, whether it's significant other, our children, our working buddies. What do we have? So these are, yeah, I like the savoring. I'm also a chef. So for example, just the name of a properly cooked dish is enough to take me, to that culture, to that country, without traveling. So I wasn't impacted by COVID thanks to that somehow.
Yeah, the taste savoring, that's probably the savoring that we're most familiar with, is savoring the taste of something. But yeah, thank you, Bernadette, for sharing that. I love the idea of an emotional bank account. It's not something I thought of. I will be taking that, so I will credit you.
That's so good, because we all would like to have more money in our savings account, right? For the rainy days.
Yeah,
Same
for
thing
sure.
for the emotion, I think.
For sure. For sure. Would anyone else like to share? So we can increase. Yeah, Darko, carry on.
I can see Jay was sharing, feels like I'm connected with my inner being. Yes, that is in the
Feel
chat.
free to share in the chat as well if you aren't able to or don't want to. Yeah, Adrian, I consider NLP and anchoring applications in healthcare, lots of resourceful and unresourceful anchors. Yeah, I agree. And I think Bernadette's hit on something with an emotional bank account. Savoring those experiences and the unforgettableness of them. And maybe an exercise like savoring allows you to save the pennies. And these come free of charge, absolutely. So savoring is adding those extra little pennies. You may have saved £1, $1, $100, but adding those extra little details is like putting the interest on it. So going back and re-feeling and revisiting those experiences allows us to add the interest onto our emotional bank account. Compound interest, I love that. We should get a little book and write out our positive experiences. For sure. So I'm going to share a couple of ideas of how to increase savoring. And then we will finish a few minutes early and I'm around for questions or just general chat if anybody would like to. So we can increase savoring through cognitive and behavioral strategies and with interpersonal sharing. So a few of you have shared in the chat how this particular talk, the pictures, the memories, has allowed them to take themselves back to Bali if you were there. These different ways of savoring have different effects on positive outcomes. You can savor the present moment, as I mentioned. Reminiscing is associated with increased positive emotions, while interpersonal sharing of positive events in person or on the phone or video chat are associated with the higher levels of life satisfaction. These positive effects of interpersonal sharing didn't occur if sharing was through social media, such as Facebook, Instagram posting, The benefit is that the interpersonal sharing is not just the sharing of what is good, but sharing verbally. So we are, guilty of it. I don't know if it's a bad thing or not. I will share good things. I'll mostly share my holidays on social media, but most of the time it's the highlight reel.
Same.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't share the negatives. We don't want to make people feel bad, I don't think. I believe that generally as people, as human beings, we want to make other people, we want to lift them up, we want to make them feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
So there are some strategies that you might want to try for savoring in the present. It's found to be positively associated with life satisfaction, subjective happiness, positive affect. We can connect with positive emotions behaviorally by expressing them through smiling and laughing, by telling others how much we are enjoying the positive event, by recognizing and reminding ourselves that positive moments are transient and we can focus on enjoying the moment whilst it lasts, to enhance savoring. Take time to enjoy something that you would usually hurry through. I can share the raisin meditation with you at another point if anybody would like that. You can savor the past through reminiscing, which we've just done. Go through each of the 5 senses, as we've just done. You can use photographs, images, music, share your experience with others, chat with old friends, bring up a positive past memory. I really enjoyed going back through my photos back in 2020 and both back in February of this year. Not only can this kind of savouring remind you positively of past events, but it can also help you to connect with others in the present, building connections and present moment savouring of reconnection. When reminiscing about past positive experiences, you may begin to recognise how others were there for you, evoking feelings of gratitude. To further savour this moment, you could write a gratitude letter or meet with people face to face to read the letter to them. The gratitude letter has been studied and works to enhance positive emotions as it affirms positive things in your life and reminds you how others have cared for you and supported you along the way. By sharing this or visiting the person who's helped to cultivate those positive experiences, allows you to strengthen your connection, recognize how others value you as an individual and how you value them as well. Research suggests that while there are benefits to simply writing the letter, significantly greater benefits can be reaped from delivering and reading it in person. And I'll share how to do the gratitude letter in the chat for you in a moment. And just to finish, I came here today to share how to harness the power of unforgettable experiences. And my background is in positive psychology, as I've mentioned. I also have done a significant amount of training in NLP, but I wanted to try and match the two together, or at least give you experiences of both and teach you some techniques to use both of those. And I hope that going away from today that you have something to take away with you. And if you would like to chat to me more one-on-one or privately, then please do. And I just wanted to finish with positive emotions are very important for humans in order to thrive and grow, to illuminate our lives with hope and optimism, to be able to look for the benefit in almost everything in life. And I am a little bit early, but I'm just going to finish by saying thank you. Thank you to Motivate Community for giving me this opportunity. Thank you to Darko for hosting this morning. I know you were asked to do this quite last minute, and I really appreciate that. Thank you to everybody that shared the experience in Bali. And thank you most to those of you that are coming out this evening, this afternoon, this morning. I'll share the gratitude letter in the chat for you now. And I just wanted to say that I was a bit nervous about today. I've done a few of these webinars, but this was a completely different topic to what I'm used to. And I thought, push yourself out of the comfort zone. So if anybody has any feedback, either now or privately, I'd be more than happy to receive that. Thank you very much.